Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. The twin sons of Zantara 7 beat down mercilessly on the ancient arena, casting long shadows across sand stained with the memories of 1,000 battles. Ryan Cavano squinted against the harsh light, his once proud shoulders now hunched beneath the weight of his tattered exosuit. The crowd's roar washed over him like acid rain, familiar yet painful in ways he'd never admit. "Ladies of the Seven Sectors," the announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "We present to you a relic of the old wars, the legendary Bone Breaker of the Fourth Storm." Ryan grimaced. That title belonged to a different man, a whole man. "Pathetic," someone shouted from the stands. "He can barely stand." Ryan didn't bother looking up. They weren't wrong. His right leg dragged slightly, the neural damage making each step a conscious effort. His once feared vibroblade, the one that had sliced through cracks in armor like butter, now scraped uselessly against the sand as he moved toward the center of the arena. "I heard he killed 300 Voidwalkers in a single night," a young warrior whispered too loudly from the sidelines. "I heard he can't even kill his breakfast anymore," her companion snickered. Ryan forced his lips into a sardonic smile. If they only knew how close to the truth that was. The neural storm had taken more than his reflexes. It had stolen the effortless grace that once made him death incarnate. Now, he could barely cut synthetic meat without concentrating. But he didn't need their pity. He just needed dinner. "The terms were clear," he called out, his voice still carrying that whiskey-rough authority that made younger fighters stand straighter. "One exhibition match, payment on delivery, one meal, one flask of water, and safe passage to the next system." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Men were rare enough on Zantara 7 to be curiosities. Men who'd fought in the Void Wars were practically myths. Even in his diminished state, Ryan Cavano was worth the price of admission. "The exhibition will commence following the ceremonial blessing," the announcer continued. "Presiding today, we are honored by the presence of the eldest Archner sister herself." The crowd's energy shifted instantly from mockery to reverence. Ryan felt it, the electric change in the atmosphere, the collective breath held then released in a hush of awe. He turned toward the judge's platform and saw her for the first time. Rima Archner stood like a pillar of jade against the copper sky, her emerald skin catching the light in ways that made her seem to glow from within. Ceremonial armor hugged curves that had inspired poetry and bloodshed in equal measure across 3 star systems. But it was her eyes that stopped Ryan cold, brilliant blue, almost electric against her green complexion, filled with intelligence that bordered on predatory. "Well, I'll be damned," Ryan muttered under his breath. The legends hadn't done her justice. He straightened as much as his damaged spine would allow and attempted a formal bow. The movement, once fluid and practiced from 100 diplomatic missions, now resembled a drunk falling off a bar stool. His right foot caught on a hidden ridge in the sand, sending him stumbling forward. Time slowed as Ryan's balance failed him. His hand shot out instinctively, grasping for anything to prevent his fall. What it found was the smooth, cool skin of Rima Archner's exposed shoulder, his fingers wrapping firmly around her right clavicle. The crowd gasped collectively, then exploded into chaotic noise. Ryan steadied himself, confusion crossing his weathered features. "My apologies, Lady Archner," he began, only to notice the shock on the faces of the guards flanking her. Their weapons were half raised, uncertainty written across their expressions. Rima's blue eyes widened momentarily before narrowing into calculating slits. "You are either the bravest man alive," she said, her voice like honey poured over steel, "or the most foolish." Ryan removed his hand slowly. "I've been called both, usually by the same person, within minutes of each other." A ghost of a smile touched Rima's lips before disappearing. "Do you understand what you've just done, Bonebreaker?" "Embarrassed myself in front of the most beautiful woman in the quadrant." He shrugged. "Not the first time. Probably won't be the last. A young aide rushed to Rima's side, whispering urgently in her ear. Rima never took her eyes off Ryan, measuring him with that electric blue gaze. "You have made a formal claim," she announced, loud enough for the nearest rows to hear. "The first made by a man in 17 cycles." Ryan's brow furrowed. A claim to what, exactly? To me. Her voice carried no emotion, yet the arena had gone deathly silent. Or more precisely, to a night of trial with me and my sisters. Ryan blinked twice, processing her words. "I was just trying not to fall on my face, Lady Archner. Intent is irrelevant. The gesture is made." Rima stepped closer, close enough that he could smell the faint scent of star flowers and ozone that clung to her skin. "My sisters think you're too weak for us, Bonebreaker. Perhaps they're right." The challenge in her voice was unmistakable. Ryan felt something stir in his chest. Pride, perhaps, or the ghost of the warrior he once was. "With respect, Lady Archner," he replied, matching her volume, "your sisters don't know me." The corner of her mouth ticked upward. "Is that a formal acceptance of the claim?" Ryan knew he should walk away. He was damaged goods. A fighter with broken reflexes was like a bird with clipped wings. Whatever trial they had in mind would likely end in his humiliation or worse. But those eyes, those impossible blue eyes against emerald skin, challenged him on a level deeper than physical. "I accept," he said, the words escaping before wisdom could catch them. The crowd erupted again, this time with the frenzy of scandal and delight. Bets were already being placed, credits changing hands as the spectators debated how long the broken warrior would last against the Archner sisters. Rima raised her hand, and silence fell instantly. "The exhibition is canceled. The claim takes precedence." She turned to Ryan. "Guards will escort you to the Violet Towers for preparation." As two stern-faced women approached to flank him, Ryan found his voice again. "I still want my dinner." Rima's laugh was unexpected, a rich, genuine sound that seemed to surprise even her. "Oh, Bonebreaker, if you survive the night, you'll feast like a king." As they led him away, the murmurs of the crowd followed like persistent shadows. "He won't last an hour. The sisters will break what's left of him." What a waste of a legendary warrior. Ryan kept his eyes forward, focused on Rima's straight back as she led the procession. He'd heard worse predictions about his chances of survival. He'd proven them wrong before. The journey to the Violet Towers passed in a blur of purple-tinged skies and curious stares. Ryan caught snatches of information from his guards' whispered conversations, something about rituals, tests, and the sacred right of the eldest sister to judge a warrior's worth. When they arrived, Ryan stood at the base of the tallest tower he'd ever seen, a spiraling structure of violet crystal and ancient metal that seemed to pierce the very clouds. "What exactly happens now?" he asked the nearest guard. "Now?" She smirked. "Now you prove your worth or you die trying." Inside the tower, servants descended upon Ryan like a swarm, stripping away his tattered exosuit despite his protests. They left him only with loose ceremonial trousers of a silky material that caught the light like liquid mercury. "My weapons," he began. "Will be returned if you earn them," came Rima's voice from the archway. She had changed as well, her battle armor replaced by flowing robes that somehow revealed more than they concealed. The translucent material highlighted rather than hid the perfect curves of her body, while maintaining the dignity of her station. "You still haven't explained what this claim involves," Ryan said, struggling to keep his eyes on her face. Rima approached, circling him slowly, assessing every scar, every imperfection with those electric blue eyes. "The claim is ancient tradition. When a warrior touches the right clavicle of an Archner sister, they declare themselves worthy of joining our bloodline." Ryan's eyebrows shot up. "Joining your... Wait, is this some kind of mating ritual?" "In a sense." Rima completed her circle, coming to stand before him. But it's not about mere physical coupling. It's a trial of spirit, mind, and body. Her fingers traced a long scar that ran across his chest. My sisters believe you are broken beyond value, that your legend died in that neural storm. Ryan caught her wrist, his grip firm but not threatening. And what do you believe? For a moment, something vulnerable flickered in those blue depths. I believe legends never truly die. They just transform. From a distant chamber, a gong sounded, its deep resonance vibrating through the tower walls. That's our summons. Rima extracted her wrist from his grip. The first trial begins. Are you ready, Bonebreaker? Ryan straightened his shoulders, summoning whatever dignity he could while half naked and unarmed. Lady Archiner, I once fought through an entire Voidwalker battalion with 3 cracked ribs and a punctured lung, just to get back to a ship where the chef was serving his famous synthetic steak. His lips curled into a grin that held echoes of the man he used to be. For a decent meal and the company of beautiful women, I think I can manage a few trials. Rima's expression remained neutral, but something like appreciation flickered in her eyes. Follow me, then. My sisters await. As they walked deeper into the violet towers, Ryan felt the weight of his decision settling on his shoulders. Whatever these trials were, they represented more than just survival or a night's entertainment. For the first time since the neural storm had shattered his future, Ryan Cavano felt something dangerous stirring in his chest. Hope. The central chamber of the Violet Tower stretched upward like the inside of a crystal cathedral, its surfaces refracting purple-tinged light in hypnotic patterns. Ryan stood at its center, barefoot on cold stone, with the 3 Archner sisters arranged before him like judges at an execution. Rima sat on the center throne, her posture regal yet relaxed. To her right perched Vena, the middle sister, whose silver eyes seemed to catalog Ryan's every micro-expression. Her short platinum hair framed high cheekbones that matched her sister's, though her skin carried a deeper emerald tone. To Rima's left lounged Nira, the youngest, who made no attempt to hide her boredom or disdain. Her jet-black hair cascaded over one shoulder and occasional sparks danced between her fingertips as she twirled them idly. The first trial, Rima announced, is the ritual of purification. At her signal, 6 attendants emerged from alcoves around the chamber. They approached Ryan with the synchronized movements of predators closing in on prey. Your possessions will be taken for analysis, Vena explained, her voice cool and analytical. Your body will be examined for worthiness. Nira snorted. What's left of it anyway? Ryan squared his shoulders. I wasn't aware I'd brought much to analyze. Your exosuit, Rima clarified. Even damaged, it tells a story. And your weapon, primitive as it is. The attendants surrounded him, hands extended toward the ceremonial trousers he wore. Ryan held up a palm. I can undress myself, thanks. That is not the way, one attendant warned. Ryan locked eyes with Rima. Then today, we're making exceptions. A heartbeat of silence passed before Rima nodded once. The attendants stepped back, their expressions unchanged. Ryan untied the loose knot at his waist and let the silver fabric pool at his feet. He stood naked, unashamed, his body a canvas of scars and stories. The neural damage that affected his movements wasn't visible on the outside, but the evidence of 100 battles marked his skin. Plasma burns across his left thigh, the jagged line of a vibro knife along his ribs, the starburst pattern of shrapnel embedded in his right shoulder. The sisters' reactions varied subtly. Vena leaned forward, clinically interested. Nira's boredom transformed into reluctant curiosity. Rima's expression remained carefully neutral, though her electric blue eyes widened almost imperceptibly. Approach the throne, Rima commanded. Ryan walked forward, his gait uneven but his head high. Vena rose first, circling him like a scientist examining a specimen. Her cool fingers traced a prominent scar that ran from his collarbone to his sternum. Void Walker blade, she observed. 5th generation. How did you survive that? They're designed to sever the soul from the body. I don't have a soul to sever, Ryan replied dryly. Vena's silver eyes flashed. Everyone has something to lose, Bonebreaker. She pressed her thumb against a cluster of small circular scars on his back. Ryan couldn't suppress a wince. Neural dampening rounds, she noted. Military grade, from behind. Her voice carried a new note, respect, perhaps. These weren't from enemies. Depends on your definition of enemy, Ryan said, memories flickering behind his eyes. 5 years ago, Alon Sector, Cas Marin under siege. The command headquarters shook with explosions. Holographic displays flickered with casualty reports as panicked officers shouted over one another. 25,000 civilians held hostage by the defiled sphere cult fanatics who used symbiotic weapons that turned living beings into barriers and bombs. It's suicide! Commander Hex slammed his fist on the tactical table. Even our best squads couldn't break through. It's a trap. Ryan Cavano entered silently, his combat cloak settling around him like a shadow. Officers fell quiet as he approached the map, studying it with eyes that had seen too much death to be impressed by more. I'll go alone, he said, voice level. Hex laughed nervously. You're insane, Cavano. Even you. Ryan raised his hand. The force field around his wrist dissipated, and from its housing emerged a blazing archaic sword, the Star Divider, forged with technology long forgotten. Heat and fear radiated from its edge. Officers stepped back instinctively. The symbiotes respond to mass neural signatures, Ryan explained calmly. That's why your squads failed. Too many minds for the symbiotes to target. One mind, moving fast enough. He shrugged. They can't respond quickly enough. And the cult leaders? Someone asked. Ryan's eyes hardened. We'll learn why they call me the Bone Breaker. Cas Marin. Streets burning. Ryan moved like a storm of steel and flame. The Star Divider carved through symbiotic shields as if they were mist. Cult soldiers scattered, screaming. It's him! He came! He's really alone! The cult's forces attempted to summon their ultimate weapon, a Titan-class symbiote that had crushed 3 previous rescue attempts. Ryan didn't slow down. Instead of retreating, he charged directly toward the forming monstrosity. He leapt, sword blazing, directly into the creature's forming mass. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the Titan erupted from within, Ryan emerging from its dissolving core, covered in ichor but unharmed. He stood among the freed hostages, chest heaving when he felt it, the targeting lock of a neural cannon. From above, too late to dodge. He turned his head and saw the origin point wasn't from an enemy platform, but from a friendly flagship. He didn't even have time to curse. His body ignited with pain as the neural disruptor struck. No medical bots were deployed. No evacuation was sent. The hero of Cas Marin simply vanished. I saved 25,000 people. I broke through hell alone. But when I fell, no one reached out. That's when I understood. They were glad. Glad I was gone. Too powerful. Too inconvenient. Too free. Ryan blinked back to the present as Nira's electric-charged finger jabbed a particularly sensitive scar near his spine. His body jerked involuntarily, muscles spasming in ways he couldn't control. Oops, she smirked, not remotely apologetic. Did that hurt, Legend? Nira, Rima warned. The youngest sister shrugged, circling to face Ryan. Unlike her sister's analytical assessment, her inspection felt deliberately provocative. She traced the defined muscles of his abdomen, occasionally letting small electrical currents jump from her fingertips to his skin. They said you were handsome, she observed, her touch lingering longer than necessary. At least that part of the legend is true. Ryan caught her wrist before she could touch him again. I'm not a museum exhibit, Princess. Electricity crackled between them, literally, as sparks danced up from Nira's skin to his. Her eyes widened with surprise that he dared touch her, then narrowed with something darker. "The second trial," Rima announced, cutting through the tension, "is the tasting." Attendants brought forth a low table laden with dishes unlike any Ryan had seen. The food seemed to pulse with its own light, some dishes emitting faint sounds like whispers. "Each food has dual purpose," Vena explained as they seated themselves around the table. "Sustenance and revelation. What you choose reveals your nature." Ryan studied the spread cautiously. "And if I'm not hungry?" Nira laughed, the sound sharp as broken glass. "Then we'll know you're a liar as well as a cripple. Everyone's hungry for something, Bonebreaker." She selected a blood-red fruit and bit into it provocatively, juice running down her green chin. "This one makes your nerves sing with pleasure, or pain. Depends on your resistance." Ryan's eyes tracked to Rima, who watched him with those impossible blue eyes. She said nothing, waiting for his choice. He reached for a dish that seemed to simmer with internal heat. A stew of some kind, its surface shifting like living mercury. The bowl was surprisingly heavy. "Brave choice," Vena observed, silver eyes calculating probabilities. "That's chimera broth. It reshapes itself to match your deepest fears." Ryan shrugged and lifted the spoon to his lips. The liquid transformed instantly, becoming thick and black. The smell hit him first, ozone and burnt flesh, the unmistakable aftermath of a neural cannon strike. He didn't hesitate. He swallowed it down, maintaining eye contact with Rima. The taste was excruciating. Every nerve ending in his body remembered the pain of that day. His hand trembled slightly, but he finished the bowl. When he set down the spoon, Nira's expression had transformed from mockery to reluctant respect. "What did you taste?" Rima asked quietly. "Betrayal," Ryan answered simply. "Tastes like ash and regret." The third trial began without announcement. The chamber darkened and 3 moons appeared in a holographic display above, one silver, one blue, one violet. Music rose from unseen sources, primal and hypnotic. "The dance of 3 moons," Vena explained, rising to her feet with fluid grace. "You will remain standing at the center. We will orbit you. Resist our influence until the 3rd moon sets." "Influence?" Ryan questioned. Rima finally approached him directly. "Pheromones, psychic suggestion, sensory manipulation. Every weapon in a woman's arsenal, Bonebreaker. Most men fall to their knees begging within minutes." "Or worse," Nira added with a wicked grin, electricity dancing between her fingertips. Ryan positioned himself at the center of the chamber as instructed. "Sweetheart, I once won a tournament on Burning Bone Station with a concussion, and still filled in for the bartender after." His crooked smile flashed. "I can handle 3 pretty sisters dancing around me." Rima's lips quirked. "We shall see." The dance began slowly, the sisters moving in perfect synchronization, their bodies flowing like living art. Ryan felt it immediately, the subtle assault on his senses. Each time they passed, a different scent clouded his mind. Each gesture they made sent waves of suggestion into his thoughts. Vena's movements were precise, mathematical, her silver eyes never leaving his face as she calculated his breaking point. Nira was all provocation, her dance deliberately sensual, electricity occasionally arcing from her fingertips to caress the air around him. And Rima danced with restrained power, her movements speaking of authority and promise. Ryan's damaged neural pathways actually proved an unexpected advantage. The suggestions that should have overwhelmed him hit broken connections, losing potency in the damaged labyrinth of his nervous system. Minutes stretched into an hour. The first moon, the silver one, set below the holographic horizon. Vena's dance intensified, her frustration evident in the sharpening of her movements. The second hour brought sweat beading on Ryan's brow. The blue moon descended. Nira growled in annoyance, her electricity growing more aggressive, occasionally singeing the air near his skin. As the third hour approached, only Rima maintained her composed rhythm. The violet moon hung low, minutes from setting. Ryan stood firm, though his damaged leg trembled with the effort. "Enough!" Rima finally called as the third moon disappeared. The music ceased abruptly. Ryan exhaled slowly, only now realizing he'd been holding his breath. "Do I pass?" "Impossible," Vena muttered, her silver eyes wide with disbelief. "No one has ever." Nira collapsed dramatically onto a nearby cushion. "Is he even human, or just too damaged to feel anything?" "I feel plenty," Ryan countered, his eyes finding Rima's. "Just selective about what I respond to." Later that night, alone with Rima on the tower's observation deck, Ryan finally spoke the truth that had been building since his arrival. "I thought I lost my strength in that neural storm," he admitted, staring out at the 3 moons of Xantara 7. "But maybe what I really lost was my purpose, my reason to fight." Rima's hand found his across the ancient star map they'd been discussing. "And have you found it again, Bonebreaker?" Before he could answer, alarms screamed to life throughout the tower. Emergency lights bathed them in pulsing crimson. "What's happening?" Ryan demanded, instantly alert. Rima's face hardened. "The swarm. They've breached containment." "What swarm?" "A hive consciousness we've kept contained under biodomes for generations. If they reach the city—" She didn't need to finish. Ryan was already moving, his hand reaching instinctively for a weapon that wasn't there. "My sword," he demanded. "Where is it?" Rima hesitated only a moment before pressing her palm to a hidden panel. A section of wall slid away, revealing the star divider. Ryan grasped the hilt. For the first time in 5 years, the blade responded, igniting with blue flame. The neural connection that had been dead for so long suddenly flared to life, as if the sword itself had been waiting for this moment. He straightened his posture, pain forgotten. The crooked smile that spread across his face wasn't the self-deprecating one he'd worn since arriving. This was the smile of the bone-breaker of legend, predatory, confident, alive. "I'm back," he whispered to no one in particular. Rima stared at him, wonder replacing the cool calculation in her electric blue eyes. "You were never gone," she replied. "Just waiting." The corridor shook violently, dust raining from ancient crystal ceilings. Ryan sprinted ahead, star divider blazing blue in his grip. The weapon's neural connection burned through his damaged pathways like liquid fire, painful yet exhilarating. Each step felt lighter than it had in years. "Status report," he shouted over his shoulder. Rima kept pace behind him, her ceremonial robes discarded for battle armor that hugged her emerald form. "Outer perimeter breach in sectors 7 through 12, she replied, her voice crisp despite the chaos. "Biodome containment failed catastrophically. The swarm deployed countermeasures we've never seen before." They emerged onto a vast balcony overlooking the central plaza. The scene below froze Ryan's blood. The swarm wasn't simply invading, it was consuming. Thousands of metallic insectoid creatures flowed like a living tide across the plaza, engulfing screaming civilians. Each victim disappeared beneath the chittering mass, only to rise moments later as a hollowed vessel, eyes vacant, body twitching with the swarm's collective intelligence. "What the hell are they?" Ryan demanded, gripping the balustrade. "Biomechanical parasites," Vena explained, appearing at his side with a tactical display hovering before her. Her silver eyes calculated casualty rates with cold efficiency. "Ancient weapons from the Void Wars, designed to convert biomass into more of themselves. We've contained them for generations." Nira skidded to a halt beside them, electricity crackling around her fists. "Until someone decided to sabotage the containment fields. This was deliberate." Below, the elite guard of Xantara 7, feared warriors who had kept peace across the sector for decades, broke formation and scattered. Their energy spears discharged uselessly against the swarm's adaptive shields. One by one, the soldiers fell or fled. "Your people are running," Ryan observed grimly. "They've never faced anything like this," Rima defended. though her voice carried disappointment. She unholstered an energy spear from her back, its tip crackling with violet power. The swarm's collective intelligence adapts to any conventional attack pattern. Ryan's eyes narrowed. Conventional, huh? Without warning, he vaulted over the balcony rail, ignoring Rima's shout of protest. He landed heavily 3 stories below, his damaged leg absorbing the impact with a shock of pain that he channeled into focus. The Star Divider hummed in response to his surging adrenaline. A civilian woman clutching a child froze in terror as a wave of the swarm surged toward them. Ryan lunged forward, sword arcing through the air. Blue flame trailed behind the blade as it cleaved through the front line of the swarm. The creatures screeched, their metallic bodies severing cleanly where modern weapons had failed to penetrate. "Run!" he commanded the woman, who stared at him in shock before bolting toward the evacuation zone. The swarm, sensing a threat, converged on Ryan from all sides. He pivoted, blade dancing in deadly arcs. Each strike incinerated dozens of the creatures, their adaptive shields useless against the ancient technology of his blade. "The central node!" Vena's voice called from above. "There has to be a queen directing them." Ryan nodded without looking up. He'd already identified the pattern. The swarm moved with purpose, protecting something at its center. He charged directly into the thickest part of the horde. Star Divider held before him like a plow cutting through living metal. From the balcony, Rima aimed her spear at a cluster flanking Ryan, but the weapon sputtered and died after the 3rd shot. "Power cells depleted," she cursed, tossing the useless weapon aside. "Our conventional weapons are worthless," Vena calculated grimly. Probability of survival diminishing rapidly. Nira's electricity crackled in frustrated arcs. "We can't just watch." Below, Ryan carved a path through the swarm, his movements fluid despite years of disuse. With each kill, the Star Divider burned brighter, feeding on the energy of its victims. The broken neural pathways in his body seemed to realign temporarily, muscle memory returning in a rush of deadly precision. He reached the center of the plaza and found what he sought, a pulsating mass twice his height, covered in writhing metallic appendages. The Queen Node. It sensed his approach and emitted a high-pitched signal that sent the surrounding swarm into a frenzy. Ryan lifted the Star Divider above his head and brought it down in a 2-handed strike that split the night with blue flame. The blade connected with the Queen Node, sinking deep into its core. For one breathless moment, the entire swarm froze. Then the Queen Node's defenses activated. Lightning-like tendrils erupted from its surface, wrapping around Ryan's arms, legs, torso. Pain lanced through him as they probed for weakness, seeking entry to his nervous system. "No!" Rima's voice cut through his agony. She had somehow reached the plaza floor and was racing toward him, weaponless but determined. Ryan gritted his teeth and pushed the blade deeper. "Stay back!" The Queen Node pulsed, its defenses redoubling. The Star Divider's flame dimmed as the creature drained its energy. Ryan felt his strength failing, his damaged neural pathways collapsing under the strain. His knees buckled. He had one chance, one final surge of strength. With a roar that tore from somewhere primal within him, Ryan twisted the blade and channeled everything he had left, pain, rage, hope, into the neural link with his weapon. The Star Divider flared blindingly bright, unleashing a torrent of blue flame that engulfed the Queen Node. The creature's death scream reverberated through the plaza, a sound of metal tearing and ancient circuits frying. The tendrils around Ryan's body withered and fell away. Throughout the city, swarm creatures dropped lifeless to the ground. Ryan stood swaying, Star Divider dimmed to a faint glow in his trembling hands. He'd done it. But the cost was evident in the way his legs barely supported him, the way his vision tunneled to a narrow point of light. His damaged body had given everything it had left. He smiled faintly, oddly at peace. At least he would die a warrior again, not a broken has-been. The Star Divider slipped from his fingers as darkness closed in. "Catch him!" Rima's voice seemed to come from a great distance. Ryan felt arms around him, not just two, but six. The Archener sisters, all of them supporting his fall. Their combined strength lowered him gently to the ground. Neural cascade failure, Vena diagnosed clinically, though concern tinged her silver eyes. His damaged pathways are collapsing completely. Not today, Rima countered fiercely. She pressed her palms to Ryan's temples. Sisters! What happened next defied Ryan's fading consciousness. The three sisters formed a triangle around him, their hands linked. Energy, not electrical like Nira's, but something deeper, more primal, flowed between them and into him. It coursed through his broken neural pathways, not healing them but creating new connections, alternate routes for commands to travel from brain to body. The last thing Ryan saw before consciousness fled was Rima's determined face, her blue eyes blazing with effort and something that might have been fear, not of him, but for him. Most reckless, self-sacrificing, idiotic. Rima's voice penetrated the darkness, drawing Ryan back to consciousness. Her words were harsh, but her tone held relief. He opened his eyes slowly. He lay in a vast bed within the highest chamber of the Violet Towers. The three sisters surrounded him, each monitoring different aspects of his recovery. "Welcome back to the living," Nira quipped, though her usual sarcasm was tempered with genuine warmth. Ryan attempted to sit up and found, to his surprise, that his body responded smoothly. The ever-present tremor in his right hand was gone. His damaged leg supported his weight without protest. "What did you do to me?" he asked, flexing his fingers experimentally. "Quantum neural rewiring," Vena explained. "An ancient technique of our people, rarely used and never before on a male subject. We created new pathways where your damaged ones couldn't be recovered." "You could have died," Rima added, her voice tight with lingering anger, "both from the swarm and from our intervention." Ryan tested his balance, standing cautiously. His movements felt different, not the fluid grace of his prime, but something new, equally effective in its own way. "Worth the risk," he replied simply. Nira snorted. "He's still an idiot." "The people are calling you the savior of Zantara," Vena informed him, bringing up a holographic display showing crowds gathered below the tower. "Your actions have been broadcast across the planet." Ryan dismissed the images with a wave. "I'm no savior, just a soldier who remembered how to fight." "You're more than that," Rima countered softly. The sisters exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them before Nira and Vena discreetly exited the chamber. Left alone with Rima, Ryan approached the balcony doors, pushing them open to greet the night air. The three moons of Zantara 7 hung low on the horizon, bathing the recovering city in silver-blue light. Below, cleanup crews worked to remove the deactivated swarm components. Life continued, changed but undefeated. "The trials," Ryan mused. "Did I pass?" Rima's footsteps whispered across the floor as she joined him. "You exceeded any test we could have devised." Her hand found his shoulder, turning him to face her. In the moonlight, her green skin took on an otherworldly luminescence, her blue eyes reflecting starlight. "You proved one man can be stronger than three sisters," she murmured, her fingers moving to the fastenings of her ceremonial robe. "Though perhaps stronger isn't the right word." "What is?" Ryan asked, watching as silvery fabric slipped from her shoulders. "Worthy," she answered, standing before him in nothing but moonlight and confidence. "Equal, necessary." Ryan closed the distance between them, his healed body responding with forgotten intensity. His hand cradled the back of her neck, drawing her lips to his in a kiss that spoke of survival and possibility, and futures neither had dared imagine. Their bodies met like opposing forces, finally achieving balance, her cool skin against his heat, her strength matching his own. They moved together to the vast bed, a tangle of competing desires finding harmony. I thought I'd lost everything worth fighting for, Ryan admitted against the hollow of her throat. My purpose, my strength, my future. Rima arched beneath him, her hands mapping the constellation of scars across his back. And now? He looked down at her, this powerful, impossible woman who had helped rebuild what war and betrayal had broken in him. Now I know what's worth protecting. One cycle later, the Great Hall of the Violet Towers hummed with activity as delegates from across the sector gathered for the formal treaty signing. Ryan stood at Rima's right hand, dressed in ceremonial armor that marked his new position as Consort Prime and Defense Strategist of Xantara 7. The whispers followed him everywhere. Legends of the human who had defeated the swarm with an ancient weapon, who had won the hearts of the feared Archener sisters, who had changed the course of an entire planet's history. Ryan ignored the whispers. He'd had his fill of legends. Reality, with its complications, compromises, and unexpected joys, proved far more satisfying. Nervous? Neera teased, sidling up beside him. Their relationship had evolved into a complex dance of mutual respect disguised as constant needling. About signing a peace treaty? No. Ryan smirked. About your cooking rotation tonight? Terrified. Electricity sparked playfully from her fingertips. You survived the swarm. You'll survive my protein synthesis experiments. Vena approached with the final treaty documents. The probability of successful implementation is now 87.3%, she reported, her silver eyes warm with rare approval. Up from 12.8% before your intervention in our society's structure. High praise indeed, Ryan noted dryly. Rima called the assembly to order, her authority absolute yet tempered by the new wisdom hard-won through crisis. As she spoke of unity and strength and future prosperity, her eyes found Ryan's across the crowded hall. He stood straighter, his body now his ally rather than his enemy. The Star Divider hung at his side, a reminder of wars past and the vigilance needed to maintain peace. Later, in the privacy of their chambers, the four of them would continue building something unprecedented, a family forged in crisis, bound by choice rather than obligation. The sisters challenged him, completed him, pushed him beyond limitations he'd accepted as permanent. The delegates from the outer colonies are requesting a demonstration of your combat techniques, Rima informed him as the formal proceedings concluded. Ryan smiled, a flash of the old warrior's confidence tempered by new purpose. Tell them the Bone Breaker is retired from demonstrations. He took her hand, a public gesture that once would have scandalized Xantaran society. But if they want to see real strength in action, he continued, they should watch how we rebuild this world together. Rima's fingers tightened around his, always the strategist. I learned from the best, Ryan replied, eyes tracking across all three sisters, or rather, from the three best. The future stretched before them like uncharted space, vast, unknown, but faced together. And for the first time in 5 years, Ryan Cavano, the bone breaker of the fourth storm, found himself looking forward rather than back. Epilogue. Legends begetting legends. The master chamber of the Violet Towers glowed with pre-dawn light, casting purple shadows across the enormous bed where 4 figures moved in ancient rhythm. Ryan's scarred back tensed as Rima straddled him, her emerald skin gleaming with sweat, blue eyes half closed in pleasure. Vena's calculated touch guided along his shoulders while Neera's electric kisses traced his neck. Still think you can handle all 3 of us, Bonebreaker? Rima whispered, her hips moving in measured precision. Ryan's laugh rumbled deep in his chest. 10 years later, and you're still asking that question. His hands gripped Rima's waist, guiding her movements, his neural pathways, rewired and enhanced over the years, allowing him control that would have been impossible in his military days. This was different strength, intimate power born of connection rather than combat. The door crashed open without warning. "Father!" The Krell delegation arrived early and, "Oh, void take me!" Zarek, their eldest son at 9 years old, stood frozen in the doorway, eyes wide with mortification. With Rima's jade coloring but Ryan's piercing gaze, he was already showing tactical brilliance that frightened military advisors twice his age. The sisters disentangled themselves with practiced efficiency. Nira casually tossed a robe over Ryan, electricity still sparking from her fingertips. "Knock next time, nephew," she said with characteristic bluntness, entirely unembarrassed. "Unless you want another psychology session with Aunt Vena about natural biological imperatives." Zarek's face contorted in horror. Once was enough. Forever. He straightened, attempting dignity despite his crimson face. The Krell delegation landed 30 minutes ahead of schedule. Commander Lissa says it's deliberate intimidation tactics. Ryan swung his legs over the bed's edge, instantly transitioning from lover to strategist. "Sounds like the Krell. Tell Lissa to keep them waiting in the amber reception hall. No refreshments." "Already did." Zarek's embarrassment faded, replaced by the easy confidence he'd inherited from all his parents. "And I activated the subsonic discomfort emitters." A proud smile crossed Ryan's face. "That's my boy. Subtle, but effective." Zarek beamed momentarily before remembering his dignity. Arya is already running background profiles on their delegation. She found 3 discrepancies in their diplomatic credentials. Of course she did. Vena nodded approvingly, thinking of her 7-year-old daughter whose computational abilities had already surpassed the palace AI systems. "Tell your siblings we'll meet in the strategy room in 15 minutes, Rima instructed, royal authority seamlessly replacing passion. After Zarek departed, Ryan chuckled. "Remember when we could get through a morning without interplanetary incidents?" "No," all 3 sisters answered simultaneously. The family strategy room, once a formal war chamber, buzzed with activity as 6 children and 4 adults gathered around the massive holographic display. This was the true power center of the Zantaran alliance, though few outsiders understood the extraordinary family dynamic that had transformed an isolated planet into an interstellar diplomatic powerhouse. Ryan's gaze swept proudly across his children. Zarek stood beside, both born to Rima, regal, composed, natural leaders already. Kellen, Vena's analytical son, manipulated probability models with inherited silver eyes that missed nothing. Fiery twins Elara and Talon, Nira's contributions, literally sparked with electrical current when excited. And little Nova, Rima's youngest, who observed everything with unnerving intensity from her perch on Ryan's restored exosuit. 6 children. 6 impossibilities. The first human Zantaran hybrids in recorded history. "The Krell position is untenable," Kellen announced, his fingers dancing through projections. "There's a 92.8% probability they're using diplomatic overtures to mask fleet movements in the Corellian expanse." Arya nodded, her blue eyes, identical to her mother's, narrowing. "Their resource allocation patterns confirm it. They're stockpiling Tylium at twice their normal consumption rate." "Can we fight them?" Talon asked eagerly, tiny sparks dancing between his fingers. Ryan exchanged glances with Rima. Their children had known only peace, prosperity, and power, a dangerous combination. "We don't fight unless absolutely necessary," Ryan reminded them, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen too much war. "Our strength isn't in our weapons. It's in knowing when not to use them." Says the legendary bone breaker, Elara rolled her eyes with preteen exasperation. "Yes," Ryan answered seriously. "Says exactly the man who earned that name and wishes none of you ever have to." The room quieted. Even at their young ages, the children understood their father's history, how he had been betrayed by those he protected, how he had lost everything before finding a new purpose on Zantara 7. Vena broke the moment with practical efficiency. The Krell believe we don't know about their violating the Hadrian Accords. This gives us leverage. We exploit their assumption of our ignorance, Rima agreed, automatically finishing her sister's strategy. And while they think we're distracted by meaningless diplomacy, Nira continued, we position our own assets, Ryan completed, the four of them functioning as a single strategic mind after years of partnership. The children watched in fascination as their parents demonstrated the seamless unity that had made the Xantaran alliance unassailable for a decade. Later, standing on the private balcony overlooking the capital's crystalline skyline, Ryan found a rare moment of solitude. The star divider hung at his side, its ancient power now fully integrated with his rewired neural pathways. Having deep thoughts again? Rima stepped beside him, her hand finding his. Just reflecting on impossible things, Ryan answered. 10 years ago, I was a broken weapon looking for one last battle to die in. And now, he gestured toward the sprawling city, toward the spaceport where vessels from dozens of worlds docked peacefully, toward the distant academy where their children trained alongside students from former enemy nations. Now, I'm the luckiest damn fool in 3 sectors, he said simply, father of legends in the making, husband to 3 impossible women. Consort Prime, Rima corrected with mock severity. Fancy title for keeping 3 sisters satisfied, he teased, pulling her against him. Her expression turned serious. The Krell situation could mean war, regardless of our diplomatic efforts. You know that. Ryan nodded. I do. The children will want to fight. They're too young, Ryan said firmly. We were younger when we first saw battle, Rima reminded him, and they have abilities we're only beginning to understand. The genetic combination of your human resilience and our Xantaran evolutionary advantages. Ryan knew she was right. Their children were extraordinary, stronger, faster, more adaptively intelligent than either humans or Xantarans. The universe would not let such potential remain untested forever. I wanted to give them what we never had, he admitted. Time to just be children. Rima leaned her head against his shoulder. You have, but the stars are calling them just as they once called us. From inside came the sound of children arguing, followed by Nira's sharp reprimand and Vena's measured intervention. The beautiful chaos of family life, chaotic, unpredictable, precious. Then we'll face whatever comes next, Ryan decided. Together, as we always have. Rima smiled, a rare, unguarded expression of pure affection. The legend of the Bone Breaker may have brought you to us, but it's Ryan Cavano, the man, not the myth, who built this future. Ryan kissed her forehead, thinking of the extraordinary family they had created, of the 6 impossible children who carried their legacy forward, of the adventures still awaiting them all as the Krell threat loomed and unknown stars beckoned. The legends were nothing, he said softly as Nova's small voice called for him from inside. The truth is everything. He turned from the balcony, Star Divider humming softly at his side, ready to join his family in writing the next chapter of a story far greater than any legend. Behind him, in the distant night sky, a new star flared briefly, too briefly for most to notice. But Ryan Cavano noticed, and he wondered what new challenge the universe was sending their way.